The frozen visitor. The wind howled like a wild animal. Snowflakes danced in the air, sharp like needles. Sergeant Daniel Reeves pulled his coat tighter and kept walking. He was alone on this frozen planet, far from Earth, doing his final patrol. Before evacuation, the war was over. This place was quiet now, dead and forgotten. Still, Daniel had orders to check for any strange signals. He didn't expect to find anything. He just wanted to finish and go home. Suddenly his scanner beeped. He stopped. The screen blinked with a red dot. Something was moving, not far away. Too small for a ship, too slow for a drone. Daniel raised his rifle and moved slowly through the thick snow. His boots crunched on the ice. The cold air burned his lungs. Then he saw it. A figure crawling in the snow, not human. Thin arms, glowing blue skin. Long fingers digging into the snow. It was shaking, almost frozen. Daniel's heart raced. He pointed his rifle. The alien looked up. Its eyes were wide and full of fear. It didn't move, didn't attack. It just stared at him and tried to speak, but no words came. Its mouth moved, but only weak breaths escaped. Daniel hesitated. He had fought aliens before. He had seen what they could do. But this one, it looked broken. Lost. Dying. "Who are you?" Daniel asked. No answer. The alien's eyes rolled back. It collapsed in the snow. Daniel cursed under his breath. He looked around. No one was coming. No backup. He was alone. He knelt beside the alien and checked for weapons. Nothing. Just a small device on its belt, broken and sparking. He looked at the fragile body, now shivering badly. "Damn it," he whispered, and lifted the alien into his arms. The walk back to the shelter was hard. Snow pushed against him like a wall. The wind roared louder, but Daniel didn't stop. The alien was light, but he could feel how cold it was, like holding ice. Finally, he reached the steel door of the outpost. He opened it and stepped inside. Warm air hit his face. Lights flickered on. He laid the alien gently on a cot and shut the door. Inside, the shelter was simple. A heater, a bed, a comm panel, and a few supplies. Daniel turned the heater up. He brought a thermal blanket and wrapped the alien in it. For a while, nothing happened. The alien stayed still, barely breathing. Daniel watched quietly, unsure what he had done. Had he just brought danger inside? Then the alien's eyes opened. They looked around slowly, confused. It tried to sit up, but its arms were weak. "Easy," Daniel said. "You're safe. For now." The alien looked at him. Then, with a shaky voice, it whispered, "Please, don't kill me." Daniel froze. The alien had spoken English. Not perfect, but clear enough. "I'm not here to kill you," Daniel replied. "But I need answers. Who are you?" The alien coughed. It looked at its belt and pulled out the broken device. It held it up to Daniel. "Translator," it said. "Broken." Daniel took the device and checked it. Wires were burnt. Screen cracked. He sighed. "Figures," he muttered. They sat in silence. The heater hummed in the background. Daniel grabbed a bottle of water and handed it to the alien. It drank slowly, hands shaking. "Thank you," the alien said. Daniel nodded. "What's your name?" The alien paused. "Carell," it said. Daniel repeated. "Carell. All right. I'm Daniel." Carell looked down, silent for a moment. Then slowly, it lifted its arm. There was a strange mark on the skin, glowing faintly. "What's that?" Daniel asked. Carell touched it gently. "My tribe," he said. "They hunted. I ran." "Who? Hunted you?" Carell looked up, fear in his eyes. "They are coming," he whispered. "They'll kill me. And you." Daniel stared at him, confused and tense. Outside, the wind howled louder as if something dark was moving with it. Silent shelter. The storm outside had grown stronger, screaming through the metal walls of the shelter like a warning from the planet itself. Inside, the silence between Daniel and the alien named Karel felt just as loud. Karel sat hunched on the edge of the cot, wrapped in the thermal blanket. His skin still held a faint bluish glow, but his hands trembled as if cold still lived inside him. Daniel watched from across the room, his weapon resting on his lap, not aimed but not far. "You said they're coming." Daniel finally broke the silence. "Who is they?" Karel didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor, as if remembering something too painful to speak of. When he looked up, his eyes were different. Haunted. "The ones who burn worlds," he said softly. "They found us. They took everything." Daniel leaned forward. "You mean your people?" "Your home?" Karel nodded slowly. "I was not soldier, I was engineer. We built cities under the ice, peaceful, quiet. They came without warning, no message, no demands, only death." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "What do they want?" Karel hesitated, then reached into the folds of his suit and pulled out a small crystal disc. It shimmered with a strange blue light pulsing softly. He held it tightly. "This holds everything," he said. "Proof. Maps. Warnings." "Of what?" Karel looked him in the eyes. "They are not after just my kind. They are searching, feeding, spreading. They will find Earth one day." Daniel's stomach turned. The way Karel said it, calm, certain, it didn't feel like fear. It felt like truth. "Why were you alone?" Daniel asked. "No ship? No team?" Karel closed his hand around the disc. "My shuttle was shot, crashed in the north region. Everyone else, gone." Daniel rubbed his jaw. If Karel was lying, he was doing a damn good job. But something about his words, the fear, the exhaustion, the way he touched that crystal disc like it was the last piece of his world, it all felt real. Daniel stood and walked to the small power core beside the heater. He pulled out a toolkit and knelt beside Karel. "Let me see your translator," he said. Karel handed it over, silent. Daniel opened the casing, inspecting the fried wires. "Some of this I can fix. Not all, but maybe enough to get better connection." Karel nodded. "Thank you." As Daniel worked, Karel looked around the shelter, at the photos pinned to the wall, the empty supply shelf, the marks on the metal from old battles. "This place is not your home," Karel said. Daniel gave a short laugh. "No, just another outpost in another dead place. I've served on 10 planets, maybe more." They all blur together. Karel tilted his head. "Why do you stay in places like this?" Daniel's hands paused on the wires. He stared down, then shrugged. "Maybe because I have nothing to go home to." They sat in silence again. Daniel's fingers worked carefully on the device. Outside, the storm calmed slightly, but in that quiet, a new sound slipped through. A soft, steady hum. Mechanical. Unnatural. Daniel's head snapped up. He froze, listening. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Karel's eyes widened. He nodded once, slowly. "That's them." Daniel dropped the translator and ran to the comms panel. Static. No signal. He opened the outer scanner feed. A red dot appeared, far off but moving towards them. Daniel turned back. "What exactly is coming?" Karel's skin lost color. "A scout drone, part of the swarm." Daniel swore under his breath. "We need to hide, or run." Karel stood weak but determined. "If it sees me, it calls the rest. They come fast, they don't stop." "How far until it gets here?" Karel walked to the scanner, leaned over it. 30 minutes, maybe less." Daniel grabbed his rifle and started pacing. "I could leave you," he said. "Not as a threat, but as a thought. Take my ship and go. It's still docked a few clicks south." Karel looked at him calmly. "You could, but you won't." Daniel stopped. "How can you be sure?" Karel held out the disc. "Because you already saved me once." Daniel looked at the crystal. He hated that it was true. He sighed. "We stay. We fight if we have to. Kirill nodded. I can help. If I fix power relay, I can boost your shield grid. Buy us time. You sure you can do that? Kirill gave a weak smile. I built better with less. They got to work. Daniel reinforced the door with extra plating while Carol crawled into the side panel of the power core. His hands moved, faster now, more confident. But the tension grew with each passing second. Daniel checked the scanner again. The dot was closer. 15 minutes, he said. Kirill's voice came from inside the panel. Shield ready. Not strong, but it may. Hold. Daniel moved back to his weapon. He looked at the alien beside him and shook his head. Funny, he said. 12 hours ago I was told all aliens were threats. Kirill looked at him. Some humans said the same about my kind. They shared a moment of understanding. Two strangers in the cold, both caught in something bigger than either of them. Then the light above the door turned red. The drone had arrived. Daniel aimed his weapon at the door. Kirill ducked behind the generator, clutching the disc. A soft voice came through the metal, mechanical and cold. Unregistered life form detected. Surrender or be terminated. Daniel looked at Carol. Guess talking's not an option, he said. Kirill replied, They don't come to talk. And then the door began to shake. The hunted ones, the door shook harder now. Metal screamed against metal as something outside began cutting through the locks. Sparks danced across the seal. The red warning light above the entrance blinked in a slow, steady rhythm, like a countdown to destruction. Daniel gritted his teeth and raised his rifle, laser sight fixed on the door. His breath was steady, but his heart raced. Kirill crouched beside the generator, the glowing crystal disc still tight in his grip. His skin dimmed to a pale shade of gray-blue, a sign of fear, or worse, readiness to die. Outside, the mechanical voice repeated, cold and emotionless. Unregistered life form detected. This structure will be purged. Daniel didn't know what purged meant exactly, but it didn't sound like something he wanted to experience. How many are out there? Daniel whispered. Kirill's eyes flicked toward the scanner. 1. Drone, maybe 2. Scouts, but they are never alone. More follow. If it sees you, it already has. A deep hum started, low, vibrating through the walls like the engine of something ancient and angry. The lock gave a metallic crack and dropped to the floor. Daniel turned to Carol. Get behind the panel. Hide. I'll draw fire. Carol didn't move. No. If it kills you, I die anyway. So what? We just stand here and let it in? Kirill stood, eyes glowing faintly again. We do what we must. The door burst open with a loud hiss. A drone entered. 6 legs, armored plating, and a long neck ending in a red single eye. Its body looked like it was grown and built at the same time, part machine, part living horror. It scanned the room. With a loud click, Daniel fired. A direct hit slammed into the drone's eye, blinding it. The thing shrieked, a horrible, high-pitched screech, and charged. Daniel rolled to the side as it fired a burst of blue energy, melting a hole in the wall. Kirill jumped forward and threw a flash grenade, a small silver orb from his belt. It exploded with a blinding light, stunning the drone. Daniel took his shot, 3 rounds into the core, and finally the drone collapsed, sparking and twitching. Silence. Daniel leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Is it dead? He asked. Kirill stepped closer and kicked the remains. Yes, but now, they know. Daniel's blood ran cold. What do you mean? Carol pointed at the drone's twitching remains. Every drone is linked to the core swarm. They share sight, sound, knowledge. The moment we killed it, the swarm saw us. How long before they get here? Kirill didn't answer. He just looked up. Daniel followed his gaze. The sky camera showed it clearly, dots moving above the clouds, descending. They're not just coming, Daniel said. They're already here. They had minutes, maybe less. Daniel grabbed supplies, ammo, a second rifle, 2 ration packs, and turned. To Kirill, we can't hold this place. We run. We get to my ship. Carell shook his head. They'll trace the engine trail. We can't go loud. What's the alternative? Carell opened his palm. The disc pulsed gently. We need to send this to your command, to your world. If they know, they can prepare. Daniel hesitated. You want to send them a message? Not a message, a warning. They'll never believe it. Carell stared at him, calm and steady. Then show them what happens when they don't. They exited the shelter from the back, moving through a narrow crevice in the ice. Carell walked slower now, weaker with every step, but he never stopped. The cold didn't scare him anymore. It wasn't the weather he feared. It was the shadow in the sky. Daniel's path was clear. They'd head toward the old signal tower, an ancient relay point about 5 kilometers away. It was high enough to transmit and strong enough to send Carell's disc to orbit, but the path wasn't safe. Halfway up the slope, a low howl echoed behind them. Not the wind this time, something else, something alive. Daniel turned and saw them, figures in the fog, not drones. These walked on 2 legs, tall, armored, with long, spiny limbs. Their heads were smooth and faceless, no eyes, no mouth. But they moved with purpose, scanning the snow like wolves smelling blood. Ground units, Carell whispered. Reapers. How do we outrun them? We don't. Daniel raised his rifle again. Carell held up a hand. Wait. Listen. A soft vibration moved through the ice. Daniel crouched. The snow beneath their feet shimmered strangely. Is that tunneling? Carell didn't answer. He just shoved Daniel hard. A shape burst from the ground, long, snake-like, with blades instead of a face. It wrapped around Carell's leg and pulled. Daniel didn't think. He aimed and fired 3 bursts. The creature shrieked and let go. Carell stumbled back. Daniel grabbed his arm and pulled him up the slope. Behind them, the Reapers broke into a sprint. They reached the tower, half buried in snow, steel dark with rust and age. Daniel climbed first, smashing ice from the control panel. Can you upload it from here? Carell didn't answer. He was staring at the horizon. Ships, dozens of them, not in orbit, already in the upper atmosphere. They glowed like red scars against the black sky. Carell! Daniel shouted. He blinked and nodded. He inserted the disc into the port. The tower came to life with a low hum. Lights blinked, screens flickered, but then, another sound. Not from the sky, from below. Reapers were climbing the tower. Daniel fired down the stairwell. Carell worked fast, fingers flying over buttons and controls. Just buy me 30 seconds, he yelled. Daniel didn't look back. I'll give you 60. Bullets lit up the stairwell. Reapers shrieked and fell, but more came. Daniel was nearly out of ammo. Status? He called. Carell didn't respond. The disc glowed brighter now, spinning, uploading. Daniel took another shot and ducked as claws tore through the wall behind him. Carell, we have to go now. The disc popped free. The screen said, transmission complete. Carell grabbed it and ran to Daniel. Done, he said. They'll see it. Great, Daniel said. Now let's make sure we survive, long enough to explain it. They jumped from the side of the tower into a snowbank. Reapers screamed above them, slashing at air. Daniel and Carell rolled to their feet and ran into the storm, shadows at their back. But now, they weren't just fugitives. They were hunted ones. Enemy of my enemy. The cold burned less now, not because the storm had softened, but because adrenaline had taken over. Daniel and Carell pushed through the frozen forest at the base of the mountain, snow crunching beneath their boots. Behind them, the sky flickered red. The swarm's ships were descending like vultures. Daniel's arm was bleeding, a deep scratch across the shoulder from a reaper's claw, but he barely felt it. His eyes scanned every shadow, every noise. They weren't safe. Not even close. We need shelter, Carell said, his voice ragged. We need a miracle, Daniel replied. They both knew the truth. Running wouldn't work forever. The swarm was not just hunting them, it was surrounding them, cutting off options, the kind of hunt that ended only one way. How far are we from your ship? Carell asked. Daniel shook his head. 3 clicks, maybe 4. But it's open. Ground. No cover. If we head there now, we'll be spotted. Carell stopped walking. Then we don't go to your ship. Daniel turned, frustrated. So what? We just wait here and die? Carell stared at him. No. We go where they won't follow. Daniel's jaw tightened. And where's that exactly? Carell pointed east, towards a jagged canyon, carved deep into the ice. It was old, unstable, dangerous. Even in maps it was marked as a do not enter zone. You're joking, Daniel said. That place collapses during tremors. It's suicide. Carell's expression was calm. Better to face nature than the swarm. They reached the canyon an hour later, just as dusk dimmed the sky into a pale blue haze. Above, a swarm ship drifted like a silent predator, but it didn't descend, just watched. Carell was right. For some reason, the swarm wouldn't enter this place. The canyon walls rose high around them, cracked and broken like ancient bones. The ice here was older, darker, some of it black from time or impact. Strange markings lined the walls, symbols. Daniel didn't recognize. What is this place? He asked. Carell was quiet for a long time. Then he said, a burial site. Daniel slowed his pace. Burial? Of what? Carell paused, his hand touching one of the carved walls. Long ago, this planet was not mine. Another race lived. Here, powerful, silent. They vanished, left only memories. And this canyon. Daniel's eyes narrowed. And the swarm? They stay away? Carell nodded. They fear what sleeps here. Before Daniel could ask more, something moved ahead. A flicker of light, not from a drone, not from a torch, a signal. They dropped low and crept forward. In a clearing surrounded by tall ice pillars, a fire burned, real flame, unusual for this planet. Beside it stood a figure in black armor, hooded and still. Beside the fire lay the wreck of a ship, half sunk in ice, long abandoned but still glowing faintly. Human? Daniel whispered. Carell narrowed his eyes. No. The figure turned slowly. It removed its hood. Daniel stepped back. The being looked human, but not fully. Its skin was gray, eyes silver, veins glowing softly beneath the surface. It looked like something between man and machine. You came, the being said, voice flat but strong. Carell stood tall. I didn't come for you. No, the figure said. You came because you had nowhere else left to go. Daniel raised his weapon. Who are you? The being looked at him. I'm called Syrinx. I was part of the swarm, once. Daniel blinked. You're a defector? I was created by them, trained by them, used by them. Syrinx stepped closer to the fire. But I saw what they do, and I chose not to be part of it. Carell looked wary. Why are you still here? Syrinx pointed to the ship wreckage. Waiting, hiding, hoping to warn others, like you. Daniel kept his rifle half raised. And now what? You help us? Syrinx didn't answer directly. Instead, he turned and retrieved a small box from the wreckage. He opened it and pulled out a strange chip. Glowing green, humming with power. This, Syrinx said, is swarm code. It contains command data, patterns, weaknesses. Carell stepped forward, stunned. You have access to the core protocol? Syrinx nodded once. Partial access. Enough to mask your ship, enough to fake a heat signature. Buy you time. Daniel was skeptical. Why give this to us? Syrinx looked at him. Because the swarm is growing. If Earth falls, there will be nothing left. I wasn't made to care. But I do. Silence fell. Just the fire crackled. Carell looked at Daniel. We have no choice. Daniel hesitated. Trust an ex-swarm? Use corrupted code? It sounded insane, but everything about this day had been insane. Finally, he lowered his rifle. We'll take the risk. Cyrix handed him the chip. You have one chance. Get to your ship, upload this into the nav system and leave. What about you? Daniel asked. Cyrix turned back toward the shadows. I'll stay. If they think you died here, they won't chase. Carell stepped forward. Why help strangers? Cyrix's voice was soft now. Because I once watched a planet burn. I swore I would not watch another. They left the canyon before midnight. Cyrix had shown them a hidden route, free from scans. The chip pulsed in Daniel's pocket like a heartbeat. Above, the skies were darker than ever, lit by ships that hovered like gods, patient and cruel. They reached the outer ridge near Daniel's ship just before dawn. Snow had covered most of the hull. The ramp was stuck. It took 10 minutes just to power it up. But as the engine started, a ping echoed from the rear sensor. Movement. Reapers. Coming fast, Carell jammed the chip into the nav system. Daniel hit the thrusters. On screen, the swarm ships blinked and paused. Masking signal active, Carell confirmed. It's working. Daniel pushed the ship higher. The Reapers reached the launch pad, looked up, and kept scanning, confused, blind. They were invisible. For now. As they broke atmosphere, Daniel turned to Carell. We're not just survivors anymore, he said. We're witnesses. Carell nodded. And maybe the first warning. Behind them, the planet shrank into the stars, and far below, deep in the canyon, Cyrix sat alone by the fire, watching, waiting, the enemy of his enemy, finally free. Running through the storm, the stars stretched across the darkness like frozen sparks, distant and quiet. Daniel's ship, the Triton, cut through that silence, rising from the frozen planet like a wounded bird, engines weak, shields flickering. Inside the cockpit, Daniel gripped the controls, knuckles white. Carell sat beside him, hunched over a navigation panel, eyes locked on the data screen. How far to jump range? Daniel asked. Carell didn't look up. 2 minutes, maybe less. They'll know by then. Carell nodded. They already do. Behind them, the planet of ice shrank. But above it, waiting in orbit, was the real storm. The swarm fleet, dozens of ships, black and sharp like broken knives, hovered in silence. They looked like dead machines until they moved. They're not firing yet, Daniel said. Why? Carell studied the signal. They're scanning. They see our fake signature. They're confused. Daniel exhaled. Let's keep them confused. But the peace lasted only seconds. Suddenly an alarm blared. The cockpit lights turned red. Ping. 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 Missile lock. Daniel muttered. They've made us. Carell's voice dropped. They adapted to the code. Too fast. Outside, one of the swarm ships moved. It spun silently and released 2 black-tipped projectiles. They didn't roar like human weapons, they whispered. Daniel pulled the ship hard to the left. The first missile missed. The second didn't. Boom. A shockwave rocked the ship. Lights flickered. Smoke hissed from the left engine. Shields down, Carell shouted. Engine 3 damaged, Daniel swore under his breath. We can't outrun them. We don't need to outrun. Carell tapped the screen. There's an asteroid field nearby. Dense. Unstable. They won't follow inside. Daniel turned the ship toward the rocks. Unstable? He asked. Better than certain death. The Triton dove into the asteroid field like a hunted animal. Giant rocks spun around them, crashing into each other, throwing debris in every direction. Daniel flew low, dodging broken stone and frozen gas clouds. Behind them, swarm drones entered the field. 3, maybe 4. Incoming, Carell warned. Daniel looked at the rear cam. Damn it. I thought you said they wouldn't follow. Carell's tone was grim. They're learning. The drones were smaller than ships, fast and smooth, with glowing eyes and long blade-like wings. They weaved through the rocks like hunters chasing blood. Daniel took a sharp turn, forcing one drone to crash against a spinning boulder. "One down," he muttered. Another drone fired a pulse. It hit the hull, knocking out lights. Daniel rolled the ship and shot a counter missile. Boom. The second drone exploded in blue fire, but the third, it latched onto the hull. "We've got a leech," Carol yelled. "It's drilling!" Daniel jumped from his seat and ran to the cargo bay. Carell followed. Outside, the leech drone began slicing through the outer wall with red-hot claws. Metal bent. Sparks flew. Carell grabbed a pulse rifle from the wall and threw one to Daniel. "Ready?" he asked. "Not really," Daniel replied. The wall gave way. The drone burst in, spinning, slashing, screaming like a dying animal. They fired. Bright flashes lit the cargo bay. Daniel dove behind crates while Carol circled from the left. The drone pinned Daniel blade inches from his chest, until Carol jumped on its back and shot it point blank in the eye. Crack. The drone fell, twitching. Silence returned. Daniel sat up, breathing hard. "Remind me never to doubt your aim." Carell grinned slightly, blood on his arm. "Remind me never to go into asteroid fields with humans." They returned to the cockpit. "Jump drive ready," Carell reported, voice tight. Daniel activated the core. The engine whined, slow and pained. "It's damaged," he said. "We might not make it." Carell didn't hesitate. "We try anyway." Daniel entered the coordinates. A deep space station on the edge of human territory. Outpost 7X. Far, remote, and hopefully willing to listen. He pulled the lever. The stars stretched, space warped, and they jumped. When the stars settled, they were no longer in danger, but they weren't safe either. Daniel checked the readings. "Engine core is fried. If we jump again, we'll blow." Carell nodded. "But we made it." In the distance, a large metal structure floated. Outpost 7X. Gray, wide, and slow turning. The last edge of the human frontier. Daniel opened comms. "This is Sergeant Daniel Reeves of the Triton. Requesting emergency dock and medical assistance. Passenger on board is a neutral refugee with high-priority intel." A long pause. Then a voice replied, "Permission granted. Proceed to dock, but keep weapons cold and shields down." Daniel smirked. "Yes, ma'am." They docked without trouble. Medics met them at the airlock. Daniel's wound was wrapped. Carell was checked but refused full treatment. A tall officer with gray hair and a steel voice met them in the debrief room. "This better be worth the fuel you burned," she said. "What the hell did you bring us, Reeves?" Daniel dropped the crystal disc on the table. "The future," he said. "Or the warning that might stop it." The officer looked at Carell. "And him?" Daniel nodded. "The last of his kind, and the only reason we're not dead." The officer picked up the disc. "I'll have command review this." Daniel stepped closer. "No, General. You'll review it now. Because if you wait..." Carell interrupted softly. "They'll be here before you're ready." The officer paused, then nodded. "Very well. Let's see what ghost you've brought us." As Carell's data was uploaded to the station's core, Daniel sat alone in the observation room. Stars blinked outside, calm and innocent. But he knew better now. The swarm wasn't just a threat. It was coming, learning, adapting. And soon, it would find more than a refugee. It would find Earth. Daniel looked down at his bandaged arm, then at the stars again. "We have to warn them all," he whispered. "We have to fight." Behind him, the door opened. Carell entered, quiet. "What did they say?" Daniel asked. Carell sat beside him. "They're afraid. But they believe now." "Good," Daniel said, "because fear is the first step to survival." They sat together, two former enemies now bound by fate, waiting for a war only they had seen. And outside, deep in the void, the storm was not over, it was just beginning. A dangerous signal outpost 7X hung like a quiet guardian on the edge of known space, half forgotten by Earth Command, surrounded by dead stars and dust. But inside its cold steel walls, something ancient had just awakened. Carell's warning had been uploaded. The signal had been sent, Not just to Earth, to everywhere. Daniel stood in the control room, arms crossed, watching as a dozen officers argued over the display screen. Carell's crystal disc hovered in the center of the table, glowing faint green, casting strange patterns across their faces. This can't be real. Half the data is in an alien format we can't even decode. Then decode it. We need clearance from Central Command. We can't act on this alone. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. You don't get it, he said, voice sharp. This isn't a theory. I watched it happen. We fought them. They're real. They're coming. The room went silent. The lead officer, General Astra Kell, stared at him. She was older, calm, but her eyes were calculating. If this is true, she said slowly, then we're already behind. Carell stepped forward. Your world is not the first. It won't be the last. They destroy civilizations in stages. First silence, then shadows, then fire. Kell narrowed her eyes. And you're sure this disc contains their pattern? Carell nodded. Their movement, their codes, a fragment of their hive logic, enough to predict their next step. Where? Carell hesitated. I do not know what you call it, but in your language. Station Epsilon Prime. Kell turned pale. Epsilon Prime was shut down 4 years ago, she said. Deep space, dark zone, a mining colony turned black site lab. Then it is already lost, Carell replied. Hours later, the council met in private. Daniel wasn't invited. He sat alone in the hangar bay watching ships get refueled. Pilots walked past, laughing, unaware that the stars above them had already changed. Carell joined him, quiet as ever. They're deciding, Daniel muttered. Carell nodded. They will not choose fast or brave. Daniel looked at him. What if they choose wrong? Carell didn't answer, because they both already knew. Later that night, a signal broke through the outpost's encrypted line. But it wasn't from Earth Command. It wasn't human. The computer screen blinked red. An unknown language scrolled across the bottom, followed by 3 simple words in English. We heard you. An alarm triggered. Daniel jumped to his feet, raced to the control deck. The room was lit in red. General Kell stared at the screen, her voice calm but tight. Incoming transmission would from deep space, not swarm, not us. Then who? Daniel asked. Carell stepped forward, staring at the signal. His expression shifted. This is not them, he said. This is someone else. Someone older. Older than the swarm? Kell raised an eyebrow. Yes, Carell said. The ones who built this system long before any of us. They left behind ruins and warnings. Daniel leaned forward. And now they're answering? Carell whispered. They've been listening all along. The signal changed. A symbol appeared. 3 interlocking rings floating around a single black dot. Carell's eyes widened. That is their mark. The old Guardians. Guardians? Kell asked. Of what? Carell stared at the screen, voice soft. Balance. They were said to exist across galaxies, he continued. Never seen. Never known. But when the swarm rises, they return. To either destroy or to judge. Daniel frowned. So what are they doing now? Carell pointed to the words on the screen, now repeating. We heard you. Show us why. They want proof, he said. Of us. Of you. Of what we're worth. General Kell made the decision before sunrise. Prepare a recon ship, she ordered. You're going to Epsilon Prime. Daniel blinked. What? Alone? Kell looked at him. Not alone. You and Carell. Both of you. If the swarm is heading there, we need eyes on the ground before it goes dark. Carell nodded once. It may already be dark. Kell's tone turned cold. Then light a fire. They launched before noon. The ship was fast. Small. Designed for stealth. As they entered dark space, everything changed. The stars here were dim. The air inside the ship felt heavier. like even the silence carried weight. Carell sat beside Daniel, staring at the coordinates. "What do you know about this place?" Daniel asked. Carell's face remained still. "Not much, but if it was shut down, it was not empty. Places like that are never truly forgotten, just buried." Daniel nodded. "And you think the swarm went there next?" Carell didn't look away. "Yes, they follow signals. Old tech, they consume knowledge before life. Then bodies after." The ship neared Epsilon Prime. The planet came into view. Dark, gray, no lights, no orbiting satellites, no comms, dead, but not empty. Carell leaned forward. "There, heat trace. AI, single flicker on the scanner. Underground." Daniel frowned. "Survivors?" Carell narrowed his eyes. "Or bait?" They landed near the southern ridge of the old colony. Frozen metal buildings lined the horizon, half collapsed. Solar panels shattered. Wires dangled like vines. Daniel stepped out, rifle raised. Carell followed, scanning the air. "No drones," he whispered. "Yet." They moved toward the underground bunker. Inside they found shattered labs, broken chairs, red stains on the walls. "Something happened here," Daniel said. Carell picked up a tablet. The screen still worked, barely. He tapped into a recorded log. A voice began to play. "Experiment 13 failed. Genetic link incompatible. Signal corrupted. Swarm behavior increasing. They're coming." Then static. Daniel looked at Carell. "What were they doing here?" Carell answered, "Trying to control the swarm, or copy it." Daniel swore under his breath. "They weren't just studying them. They were trying to build their own." "Humans," Carell said, "are not always wise." Before Daniel could reply, a sound echoed from deeper in the hallway. A cry. Soft. Human. "Someone's alive," Daniel said. They ran toward the sound. Inside a locked chamber they found her. A girl, no more than 16, curled in the corner, eyes wide with fear, hooked to strange machines. Daniel dropped his weapon. "Hey, it's okay. We're here to help." Carell looked at the machines. "She's part of it." "Part of what?" Carell touched the device linked to her spine. They were using her to mimic swarm code. Human interface, to talk to the hive. The girl opened her mouth. But the voice that came out wasn't hers. "You called out," it said. We listened. Daniel stepped back, shocked. "She's speaking for the Guardians?" Carell nodded. "Yes, or something close." The girl's eyes glowed faintly. "We asked for proof. Now we have it. Judgment comes." Outside, the sky turned red. A new fleet appeared. Not the swarm. Not human. Something else. Carell's voice trembled. "They're here." Daniel looked up. "Who?" Carell whispered. "The Guardians." And above, silent and watching, 3 massive ships shaped like rings of light opened their cores as the universe itself waited for what came next. Warmth in the ice space itself seemed to hold its breath. The sky above Epsilon Prime was no longer dark. It glowed, gold and blue, lit by the arrival of the 3 enormous Guardian ships. They hovered like ancient sentinels, silent and motionless, shaped like rings wrapped in light, their cores burning with a calm, terrifying energy. Daniel stood on the rooftop of the ruined colony, rifle slung over his back, eyes locked on the heavens. Beside him, Carell looked less like a refugee now, and more like something older, something awakened. His skin shimmered faintly in the new light, almost as if recognizing the ships above. "They're not attacking," Daniel said quietly. "They don't fight without reason," Carell replied. "They observe. They judge." Daniel looked at the girl they had rescued, still unconscious, still linked to the strange swarm interface machine. She lay inside a protective field, her body glowing softly. Carell knelt beside her. "She's the voice now. The signal runs through her." "What do we do?" Daniel asked. Carol didn't answer immediately, then slowly. We give them a reason to believe. The sky changed again. This time, not golden. Red. The swarm had arrived. Dozens of ships poured from a tear in space, black, spiny, growing like roots from the void. They did not hesitate. They knew what waited below. They were not coming to win. They were coming to erase. General Kell's voice came through Daniel's comm. We've picked up swarm activity across sectors 7 through 9. Epsilon Prime is their target. We're too far to help. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we hold. Negative, she said. Evacuate if you can. Daniel looked at the girl, at Carell, at the swarm ships blotting out the stars. Not an option, he replied. He turned off the comm. Carell placed a hand on the girl's machine. It hummed. Then he turned to Daniel. There's one way, he said. The Guardians don't act for individuals. They act for balance. If they see unity between sworn enemies, they might step in. What kind of unity? Daniel asked. Carell looked him in the eye. Sacrifice. The swarm struck like lightning. Drones dropped from the sky, landing across the colony like black locusts. Walls shattered, fire spread, communication was gone. Daniel and Carell moved through the wreckage, firing, dodging, setting traps. They fought side by side. Daniel took a hit to the side, kept moving. Carell pulled a drone off Daniel's back, then took a slash to the leg. Still, they moved forward, toward the tower, toward the beacon. It was the only structure, still standing, the only place strong enough to amplify the Guardian signal. We make our last stand there, Daniel said, breathing hard. Carell nodded. Together. The tower was shaking, damaged, full of shadows and wires. Daniel carried the girl. Carell covered him, blasting 2 more Reapers from the stairs. Inside the control room, Daniel placed the girl in the core. Carell worked fast. The beacon is weak. We can't power it with standard fuel. Daniel looked around. What do we use? Carell hesitated, then took the glowing crystal disc from his chest pocket. This holds more than data, he said. It holds essence, life force. It's ancient tech, made by the ones who warned us. I was never supposed to use it this way. Daniel understood what he meant. If you use it, I won't survive. Daniel shook his head. There's got to be another way. Carell smiled, small and tired. You once risked your life for me, he said. Now I do the same. Before Daniel could speak again, Carell placed the disc into the beacon port. The machine lit up instantly, white and gold. The girl opened her eyes and spoke, not in her own voice. We see you. The swarm stopped, literally froze. Dozens of drones locked in place mid-air, their signals tangled. They turned upward, toward the sky. And then, the Guardian ships moved. No weapons. No sound. Just light. Beams of pure white energy rained down from the rings, not destroying, but rewriting, cleansing. Swarm ships cracked apart like glass, broken without impact. Drones short-circuited and fell, empty shells with no will. And from the heavens, a single voice echoed through every mind on the planet. You chose unity. You chose sacrifice. This world shall remain. Daniel held Carell in his arms as the tower shook one last time. The beacon powered down. The girl collapsed, alive but exhausted. Carell's skin had faded to a pale blue, his light nearly gone. You did it, Daniel whispered. Carell smiled, faintly. Not alone, he replied. Daniel's voice broke. You don't have to go. Maybe we can... No, Carell said. This was always the end of my story. But not yours. He reached into his jacket and pulled out Daniel's military badge, the one he had found back on the ice. He placed it in Daniel's hand. Your kindness saved a stranger, he said. Today it saved a world. Daniel couldn't speak. Carol looked at the sky one last time and was gone. Not broken, not bleeding. Just light, rising into the stars. Weeks passed. The swarm retreated, damaged, fractured, scattered. The Guardians vanished too, leaving only a faint signal behind, a warning and a promise. Earth received the full transmission, and this time, they believed. Carell's name became legend. Daniel returned to Earth, not as a soldier, but as a witness. He stood before the human High Council and told the truth. Our enemy wasn't just a machine, he said. It was our fear, our hatred, our refusal to trust. The day we showed mercy was the day we earned survival. In his hand, he still carried Carol's crystal, and on his chest, his badge. Not for war, but for peace. Far away on another world of ice, a new flower bloomed, blue and glowing, the first of its kind. Beneath it, buried deep, a small marking. On a stone, Carol, last of his people, first of the new, and somewhere beyond the stars, a guardian watched, silently, waiting. For the next moment, mercy would change everything.